Right, well, we might get started then. Welcome to my session. This is Integrate for Delight, building intuitive interfaces with Claris FileMaker. So I'm really pleased to see so many people here in this session, but you do know that Chris is talking here as well at the same time, right? I thought I'd be talking to nobody in this session, so some of my friends, I've made them come along, so I'm really pleased to see the rest of you that I don't know yet, so thank you very much. My name is Kath Kirkland, and I'm a developer at Digital Fusion, and I live in Christchurch, New Zealand. So Digital Fusion is one of the bigger FileMaker development companies in the APAC region. And so we've about a staff of 21 people, split between Australia and New Zealand. So our company is one of 4 companies that organise the Reconnect conference. So that's something that we've started in the last 3 years holding in Australia. And that's growing in numbers. And so if anyone ever feels like a holiday down under, come down to Reconnect. It's a really fun conference, and we've really enjoyed hosting that. So I've been working with Craig, that's my boss there, put your hand up, Craig, for 23 years. It is a long time, and I don't like admitting that, to be honest. So, but why would you stay in a job for 23 years? So my boss is the best boss that I've ever had. He's a great boss, and I've learned a few things working with Craig. Like, 1, you get to come to the States every now and again. 2, if you're really, really lucky, you get to travel business class to the States. And 3, if you're really, really, really lucky, you get to go snowboarding in Colorado on the way. So plenty of reasons to stick with Craig. It does help that I love this job. Like, it ticks a lot of boxes for me. You can probably all relate to some of them as well. I love helping people, love problem solving, and especially love helping them do better at business and find efficient ways to run their business. 23 years, and I don't think Craig's going to get rid of me anytime soon either. So Claris FileMaker, dream the dream. My mantra, dream the dream is my mantra, and that's what I tell people when I start working with them. The reason that I say that is because it's been a really long time since we've said, no, we can't build that. Like, basically, if they can come up with an idea, we can make it happen. I feel really privileged now to be able to say to people that, yes, we can build that. You come up with the ideas, and we're your partner in doing that. That is Claris FileMaker now. Like, we've got a platform that sits in amongst other software, and it's not just out on its own anymore. It's like part of, it's a good citizen, because, we can interact with every other software, and then we can also provide information to other software. So I really do feel proud when other web development companies come to us and say, okay, our client's got this, FileMaker software, what is that? Can we integrate with it? And I'm like, yes, we've got an API. So, and that's, we're all talking the same language when it comes to that. So, dream the dream, anything is possible. I can relate to that. Workplace operating system. Have any of you recognised that Claris is starting to use this term? Do you like it? A little bit mixed? Not sure? A few yeses? I love this term because I feel like it really incorporates what we're doing now. Like, it's, FileMaker is a place that we should be encouraging people to live in, and then just using the power of every other app and using, making FileMaker look really good. So workplace operating system, I feel like that kind of speaks to the software that we're making now, and I really hope that they kind of keep going on this path, that this is their focus. So I feel like it does elevate FileMaker now from being good software to being great. And, we've got the ability to use all those wonderful apps out there. So we really should. And to be honest, if we're not integrating with other software, then we may be doing a disservice to our users. If you're not integrating, this is the risk that you might be creating a data silo. And I feel like I'm not the only one saying this because I heard this word in the keynote yesterday. And so a data silo is really, there's been studies done, and employees have reported losing nearly 12 hours per week searching for information in disparate systems. So, if you're working in the States, that might be a day a week. If you're working in New Zealand, that might be 3 days a week of time. I don't know. But 12 hours a week in any country is a long time. So, it's a lot of time. So be their hero and give them that time back. So over the last 3 to 4 years, I've been on a journey, a really long journey, 3 years, of working with one client that's really particularly pushed the boundaries and stuff of what we can achieve with FileMaker. I know some of you might have seen their name pop up because they've, have been in the FileMaker marketing, Claris marketing campaigns. But basically, what they do is they sell tyres and they'll fit them at your home or your workplace or any other place. So it's a really easy business to describe, but it's a really complicated business to run. And so I was talking with somebody about this the other day, and they said when they saw a presentation on it, it had used 30 integrations. So I wasn't actually aware that we'd used that many, but I know since that point, we've probably integrated with 7 or 8 other things as well. So it's really kind of, doing that whole integration. So we did get recognised last year, and we won the Claris Development Excellence Award for this solution. So that was a really proud moment for us. But I really wanted to talk about how we approach the development, and just to demonstrate some workflows where I feel like you don't know that they're integrating with anything, but it looks like FileMaker, it is FileMaker, and the users think it is, but it is using integrations. So just to kind of break down some barriers about using them. Whenever we were thinking about doing integration, there was always these factors that were at the top of mind about doing that. So the goals that we were trying to achieve, is it easy to use? So who's ever been asked here, make my software easy to use? It's a common thing, right? Everybody, but what is easy to use? To me, it's, does this software do exactly what I want it to do and no more? Why are some people still with FileMaker and some people go with Salesforce or something? Salesforce is a very complicated product. It does a lot of things, but I wouldn't say it's easy to use because it's not just doing the one thing that your user wants them to do. So we've got a real massive advantage because we can do that. We can customize and we can make it easy to use. Reduce data entry. So that's another thing that is just there's so many reasons for wanting to reduce data entry. Not a lot of people love it. Some people might, but it's really, if your clients aren't doing data entry, they can be doing things that are of higher value work to them. So, it saves time. But it also is efficient because you don't get mistakes and all that kind of thing. So really another good use of it. Always has to solve a problem. That's a given in the FileMaker community, right? And create a superior user experience. So this is always something that we are trying to do. It's always a bar that's getting raised all the time. You're never going to get anything perfect, but we're always trying to push that boundary to create what is an expectation rather than just what we could deliver. And then underlying everything, it has to be worth the cost and the effort. So I want to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about with a few examples. So the first example is team communication. Now this might be something that you've come across too. Like, have you ever gone to an organisation and they're using different tools outside of their FileMaker system or the current system they're using? So they might be using Excel to record notes or communicate with each other. They might be using Microsoft Teams or something. But basically, your users will find a way of solving their own problems, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best solution for the whole organisation. That was what was happening here. There was lots of people using MS Teams and Excel. But the problems with that is that that information then is never on hand at the right times. Like, it's always data siloed. It's off somewhere else. So putting that information into the hands of the people making the decisions is an important part. And also then you've got no follow-up. There's nothing to be able to action. You can't create a follow-up plan, that type of thing. So all of this issue of not having a proper system of team communication was causing all of these underlying issues. How would you usually just solve this problem, right? Like, it's a pretty simple FileMaker problem. We would just create a notes field or a notes table, record notes, record who was writing it, that type of thing, when they were saying it. And this is an example of a portal. So, there's a few issues with that. You can't really tell who is in that discussion. It's a little, the information's there, but it's not well represented. And you can't see all of the details on the third note down. That's cropped and, Okay, admittedly, we could improve this with button bars, FileMaker techniques, definitely make it look better, but the issues of the size of the notes not displaying is a problem. So we started from what would a customer expect, or what would your client expect this to look like, and kind of thought, well, what is the most common interface that people are used to dealing with when they are having a conversation with somebody else. So, the first thing that comes to mind is pretty much the universal standard now of messages. So that was what we decided pretty early on what it was going to look like, and then we worked out how to achieve that. So it was always with the expectation of this is what we're trying to do, and then let's figure out how we're going to do that. So this did create a familiar approach for people. It also meant that people didn't really have to train to learn how to use this, because it's pretty transparent, right? When we look at the way that this is designed, this is actually just a web viewer in the middle. It's in a card window. And then the top parts of the screen and the bottom part is all FileMaker. So that's all FileMaker scripts. It was just creating records and then the alerts at the top to turn them on or off type thing. And then we just used some HTML to display the messages in a web viewer. So that resulted in quite a shift for the organisation, because this did actually work pretty well with communicating between workplaces, between work groups. But then we realised that this kind of is a notification system as well. It's not just a messaging system. So what we did is we used that to be able to then, if somebody's tyres arrived in the warehouse, what that meant was their job was ready to be scheduled. So before we added in this system, they would have to go and find them. There would be a manual process about just matching up those tyres for the job type thing. But now when those tyres got checked in, we could just create a message, put an alert on the job and say that those tyres were ready now for the next stage, which is to be scheduled. So it really did kind of build from one thing and then morphed into another. So if you're interested in doing a similar thing, we've written a blog article on that. And all of these techniques that I'm showing you today, we've got example files on how to do it. And then at the end of the presentation, there is a link to our webpage, which has all of the links of the examples that I'm talking through. So Daniel Wood, who I work with, also goes by the name of Weet-Bix. He's done a lot of blogs. His blogs are really good, nice and technical, and it comes with an example file, so you can download and change the colours and customise it to however you like. The next one that I wanted to talk about was paying suppliers. So this is a complicated process. Well, it started off being complicated. We knew it was complicated because the person that I worked with, Jamie Cartwright at Mobile Tyre, he went and talked to their accounts person and he walked away and he didn't really understand what the process was because the person that was doing the work couldn't really explain it properly, and so it took like a lot of time to for us to work through together to find out, well, what is actually needing to be achieved in each step of the workflow. So with paying suppliers, this is so they purchase tyres on behalf of their customers and then need to pay the tyre manufacturer for them. It was a complex workflow. There was a lot of data entry that had to go on. They needed to know, have they actually received those tyres? So that was an important part of, you don't want to pay somebody if you haven't got the goods or anything. So they needed to check that off. And then they needed to know how much were they charged for those tyres. So that's a really simple question, but quite often for us it's a really difficult thing to be able to do, to figure out just exactly what the price of that unit is. But in this case, it was pretty straightforward. And then they use Xero as their accounting software. And so the end goal was to have the supplier bill end up in Xero. So we wanted to do that as hands-free as possible. So we looked at what our options were on the table at that point. And at that point, actually, there was mostly only two. There was going around to all the tyre suppliers, asking them if they had an API, integrating with them directly. That's a single integration for every single supplier. It was quite a lot of work. Not everybody was on board. It seemed too hard. So the next one that Jamie suggested that I look at was optical character recognition. So has anyone used this? Okay, quite a few people. Do you love it as much as me? You do? I love it. The first time I saw somebody use it was magic. I just thought, how great is this? From a PDF, you can get this JSON. How easy is that for us to work with? So, what they were doing was to get the PDF, they would store it in a folder, they would enter that into their system. There was a lot of involvement to even just get that into a digital form for them. But this just meant that we could use a service that read everything from that PDF and create a JSON. So there is quite a few, it is a paid service, so that is one barrier, but there's a lot of companies around that do this. And you can either get it as JSON or CSV. But the reason that we chose this company was because it came back with standardized JSON. So that meant that if we use some of the other options, it would come back and it would have an invoice number there, but the element name might be invoice NO, or it might be an INV hash. And so that was a lot of work to then kind of replicate that programmatically, use that. But this one comes back with a standard JSON, so it was really easy to work with. AI would be on the table now for this kind of thing. It wasn't when we were doing this, so we didn't kind of consider that, but I would consider that now, but I'd still wonder how much time would take to just get that prompt right so that you would get the consistent JSON returned, but I'm sure it's possible. So this is the Verify website, and this was the demo that I did. You basically just drag and dropped a PDF into the site up there, and then it would give you the two outputs, either visualized data or standardized JSON. So we knew we were going to work with this technology, and then we needed to work backwards and figure out, okay, we're going to start with this integration, but then how do we build this into their system and use all of the data that we've already got? So what we did was put a container field in a card window and dropped the PDF into that. So that has got a script trigger on it, which would then send that PDF to Verify and bring back all that lovely JSON. So when it's in there in FileMaker, you know, that's so usable. So you can see that that brings back some invoice details and reference details that we could use then to match that to a PO that we had already created. This is the next screen, so we just use a couple of elements out of that, the data that we got from Verify, which is the reference number and the total, just to make sure that that actually did match what we were expecting to pay for those items. And that has just done a FileMaker lookup just to find a matching record in our tables. And then those two values are all the same, so on with the next one. And then that has created a copy of that the bill, and then we can send that to Xero. So the nice thing about this is that the document which was put into Verify and sent to Verify in the beginning is that document that is stored at the bottom of the screen. And as we posted that invoice to supplier bill to Xero, that has posted the document as well. So at this point, really, they've only dragged and dropped into a container field and then done a couple of clicks through, and we've been able to automate all of that. So there's been no data entry. This is a smooth run. If they had problems, there would be. But there was no data entry up until this point, and then they can send it to Xero. So with the right questions asked about the process, we were able to kind of just look at what did they need to achieve. They needed to see if the stock was there, they needed to see how much they paid for it, and then they needed to get it into Xero. So that was kind of a quicker process. So I've written a blog on this one too, and that is working with Verify, and you can go to our website to download that if you are interested. Sorry. So the next one that I want to talk about is to touch on communication with customers. So we know there's nothing more important, right? Happy customers mean happy clients for us. They also have this is FileMaker Go, and they have an app where their technicians go out on site, and so this gives them all the job information, the location, that type of thing. when they book with Mobile Tyre, they don't actually get a job time, they get a slot window. So that gives Mobile Tyre the ability to be able to schedule as they need to make those runs more efficient. But however, that does leave the customer not exactly knowing what time somebody is going to turn up to their place. So to avoid all of that issue, we would like to be able to have some strong communication with them, let them know that the tech is going to be at their place at X time. And that really helps with the job process. If somebody, they don't need to be there, but it would give them a chance to make sure things like the car is in the right place, that type of thing. So just some time to sort out that job. So what we did is we were already pretty invested with Google Maps. So bringing up their address and bringing up the location of the van meant that we could work out what's the travel time between that person and the next job. So that gave us the total time between point A and B. In this case, it's 10 minutes, I think, 10 minutes. So now we know how long it's going to take them to travel to the job, then we can create a text message and send that to the customer. So this text message says, "Hi Kath, letting you know I'm en route 21 Nicole Ave, Dandenong North," Australian addresses. Google Maps suggests that I'm 10 minutes away. Regards, Jamie, your tyre technician. So that was a really quick win for us. Like, they just hit the button, view where they were going, and were able to calculate the travel time. It also meant that we could also record that text had been sent from FileMaker. And so the office looking at the job screen can then get a timeline, and they had some clarity about, okay, that text message was sent at 9:11, and then we've also recorded the contents of that text message and stuff in FileMaker as well. So up until that point, they had been using their phones to message, so that was all kind of captured outside of the system. So it was a much better solution for them to have that all in the system, and then they can see the whole picture of what's happening with the job. So to do that, we did have to use 3 technologies. So it's a simple 2-step process, but there was a bit of work that went into it. The Google Maps was quite simple. Google Address Validation, that is something that we've had to build into their system because everything needs to be geolocated. So that is part of taking the job details and doing a lookup on the geolocation at the time. And then we used message media text service. So that whole location part is quite fun to play with. And here you can see that, if you were in New York at the moment, wanting to get from the Metropolitan Museum of Art to Times Square, and you were walking, it would take you 40 minutes. If you changed to public transport, it would take you 28 minutes. And if you changed to car, 13 minutes. And the best option is to bike. So wouldn't that be nice? Bike through the park there. So that's all just demonstrating. That is just one small parameter that you can pass to the Google Maps API, and it will give you the different style of transport. So if you're interested in looking at something like that, we've also done a blog on it, and that's the website you can get to there. The message media, we started doing that, and that was from DB Services. Is anybody here from DB Services? Because they're such a great sharer in the community. They're a great place to go to. They've got a lot of technical articles as well, and they've done a lot of integrations, and quite often your starting point doesn't have to be fresh. A lot of people in the community have done a lot of things, shared a lot of information about it. So in lots of cases, I've borrowed other people's work, and so, you're welcome to borrow our work. I think if we all work together, it makes all of us stronger, and really our competition isn't each other, it's the other platforms out there. So I think, we're real advocates of sharing information, and a lot of other companies are too. So the next one I want to talk about is phone integration. This was really just the aim was to get as much information about the caller as possible, because the majority of their jobs come in through the website, but they also have a call centre, so you can call up there. We used a lot of technology here, and we used 2 phone systems to get us the information that we needed. And then we used Google Analytics, but I'll just briefly talk about Google Analytics first, because it's related to the workflow that we entered in. I find it's really interesting and scary, but interesting. And then I'll touch on their 2 phone systems. So the Google Analytics, the problem that they were trying to solve for was that a large part of their business is through the website. So Google searches is of paramount importance to them. They invest heavily in it, and so there is a person on their team this is their number 1 job, to do Google Analytics. It's not my thing. I've seen what they do, and it's quite in-depth. So it's definitely a very specialised industry. However, what can happen is a job can start on the website, and if they purchase on the website, that's great. Google Analytics records it as a positive sale. That then loops back through, and then they can decide, well, those keywords that were searched on, we want to up our bid on those. So it's a live feedback to their website to encourage refined Google searching. However, what can happen is the customer can start on the website and then give up on the website and call the call centre and finish off the sale there. So what was happening was we wanted these calls to be recorded as part of the Google Analytics, but because they didn't finish on the website, they were getting missed out. So that meant that we wanted to be able to record, if this job got converted in FileMaker, we wanted that to feed back into Google Analytics as well. So all that meant, it's a complicated thing, but all that meant was we needed to track the Google click ID that person made when they called the company, and then we need to pass back some parameters using a URL back to Google, and that was enough to record a positive sale. So that process of recording back to Google Analytics from FileMaker was really just hitting a URL with the right information. But to get the right information, this comes back to what we can get from RingCentral and Delicon. So as part of their phone setup, they have 2 setups here. RingCentral is much better for call management, and Delicon is much better for website integration. It's really interesting what you can get from a phone call. And this is where it blows me away, because you don't know what information is getting passed about you all the time. And when you see it, it's quite eye-opening. Okay, so really what we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to identify that customer for a start. So when the phone goes, we wanted to, in FileMaker, we wanted to be able to get some kind of notification to say this is a known person or it's a not a known person. And that changes the conversation that those people will be having with that caller. They're a national company, so knowing the location of that call is important. And knowing that that person has already been in their database and is recognised by their phone number is important too. So we've created this system here for notifications. And this is an example here of somebody that is an unknown caller. So there's no links back to any FileMaker records, but we've got some details there. What that will do then is if that's a new record, they'll click answer. That will pre-populate the phone number and the address into, parts of the address into the customer record, so that even if this call doesn't go very far, they can record all that they need to put in is the first name of this person, and we've already got some decent amount of details about this person. So if they call back, they are a known customer at that point then. So the pop-up was the way that we started, and we used a technique that I'll show you in there's links to how to do that. But it actually didn't work because having this pop-up window was great, and I thought, this looks like a professional phone app. This is something we can do in FileMaker now. But what it did was it took the attention away from the window that they were using to this pop-up window, and so it really broke their routine, and it ended up being more distracting having that pop-up. So we've changed it now, and it's just become like a portal on their dashboard that they can see. That part in the corner there. So it's less obtrusive, and it's just they'll click and answer that call, and you can see that that's been answered by JL. So I alluded to some of the information that you can get from phone calls. So this is the type of information that you can pull from some of those phone systems. If it's coming from a website, you'll get the Google Click ID, but you'll also get the search terms. So we show that on a quote if it's this becomes a quote. So that really shapes a conversation there. Are they looking for budget tyres? Are they looking for a premium brand? Are they just looking for tyres around them? So that's some information we can get. And the other information that we can get is things like what page did they come from. So that also just helps build up that picture of a person. Registration name, we get them to put that in sometimes, different things. So yeah, there's more information there. So if you're interested in looking at that Ring Central integration with a pop-up window, Devin Drake from DB Services did that, and it's a really cool technique, and you can download their example file there. So the last example, I can see that I should have talked slower. The last example that I wanted to look at was AI. Like who's using it in their solutions at the moment? Yeah, there's a few people. Who's been asked how to put it in their solution? Yeah, lots of people just want to get it in there and check that checkbox. But we found an interesting way to put it into these guys' solutions. So the problem that they were having was with communication, so with their text messaging. What would happen was anybody at the organisation could send a text to a customer, and it wasn't sometimes the most professional message, often had spelling mistakes, or it didn't kind of reflect the company tone. And if it was confusing, that just creates more issues. So we thought, well, what would it be like if we could send their original message through to ChatGPT and ask it to give us back 3 different versions of their text with 3 different tones. And that worked really well. So we've just got it soft-coded that they can change the tones if they feel like they're not working for them anymore. But basically, we've added in another step to sending text messages, and that is to send them to ChatGPT first, get back 3 responses, and sometimes the responses are quite interesting. Sometimes they're the same. But if you're not happy with them, you can just hit try again, and that will give you 3 more versions, and you can keep going. So we've changed where the send button is now, and then so instead of send, it's submit, and they choose the right message that they want to send. There's an example file for this one too. So that is FileMaker ChatGPT. This was quite early, so this uses the OpenAI API to do it. And things have moved on a lot since then, so use the idea or use it as a guide. You can certainly see the API integration and stuff there, but you could probably do it a better way with FileMaker now. So all of our links are available from our webpage, and that's teamdf.com/engage. Feel free to poke around some of our other articles. Daniel was really good at putting them out, so there's quite a lot of, going back quite a few years and stuff now. So this has been asked of all of us, but it's, can you rate our sessions, please? This is really important because Claris, every time they get to an Engage, they want to know what people want to hear. And this is a great opportunity for you to let them know about what is the content that is appealing to you. They look at these and they do actually use them, and they do try to keep the speaker lists pretty fresh. And if this is really their only guide that they've got for you to go on. So please rate all the speakers if you can. Thank you. That's it. Right, so I have finished a little bit early, but is there any questions of anyone? Hi. Oh.
Bidirectional SMS messaging from the customer back?
Yes, we are. So we're using a webhook to do that, and that uses the message ID so that we can find the original sent message. And we're also sending media files and stuff like that as well. So it's quite... Okay. Yes, back there.
To kind of jump on that topic, in the US, we're finding an issue with the messaging where we have to jump through a lot of hoops to get them, to get each company approved, the FCC. So and then we just got, for now that we have to tell our customers they have to put a privacy policy on their website, we just got feedback on that. It's a bunch of things we're having to deal with. Is anyone finding a better way of dealing with the bidirectional text messaging? It just sucks, right?
So the question was, is anyone finding a better way of dealing with bidirectional texting? Is it in the States? We don't have those regulations, I don't believe. So what are the regulations that are here that...
It's to prevent spamming, and spamming is a big tax problem in the US, so I get it, but it's forcing quite a burden on these small businesses that have to jump through all these places. So I'm just wondering if anyone else knows a better way. We use Twilio, and they're just kind of giving us over the head with these things. Okay. All right.
I don't have a great solution. Yes.
You're in good company.
Yeah. Businesses can't send text generally anymore without having their messages approved by the FCC. So you have to approve the template. They have to have an opt-in, opt-out, a privacy policy, and all that stuff.
Wow. Okay, that's... So there's sorry, I have to repeat this back. So there's a lot of issues going on with regulations about sending text messages. It seems to put a lot of barriers in the way.
With the API is easy.
Yeah, the API is as good as ever.
So you don't need the regulations with the API, or? Oh. Right. Yes?
Do people have to initiate their phone calls from the website? Do they have to click something to call you to get the analytics?
Okay, so the question was, do they need to, so for the analytics, do they need to call from the website to get those analytics? So we will get information based on their location, regardless of where they call from. So if they just call from anywhere, it's just the cell tower information. But all of those things about the searching, terms, that information, that's all passed through the web. That has to start from the web. Yeah. Yes, at the back.
Central integration, do they have to have that soft app on their computer and that initiates that, or are you doing that through some other way that's
Okay, the question is with the Ring Central integration, do they need the application on their computer? So we do a login process through FileMaker, which then kind of turns them on and off. But they do actually still have to answer the physical call at the moment through the desktop app. So there is 2 buttons for them to push, and that hasn't been ideal. But I think if we went further with the integration, then we could actually answer the call from FileMaker as well. Ring Central is, on the API scale of things, I found it quite complicated because you have to create a sandbox, and then in your sandbox you set up a lot of rules to do with the call forwarding. And so you also have to manage things like which teams they are in, and the groups that relates to Ring Central. So it wasn't the most straightforward integration. It's not like sending the text messages that, okay, you all have problems with that, but it was easy in New Zealand. Yeah, but no, they do have to have that on. Or otherwise they can have an old-fashioned phone. They can pick that up as well. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
Just a comment, really. First of all, the MTS solution is among the most impressive I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you.
But my comment is, tires is spelled with an I.
I'm not going to repeat that question. Yeah, thank you. I did think about changing that, but it's a learning curve, right?
He agreed with you.
Yeah. Well, I told it to. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for coming today.